Well, hello everyone, this is Contractor here with Banger Inc. And thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video on how we can create estimates in Sage 100 Contractor without using assemblies. So we're going to go in here into the software, we're going to open up our takeoff, and we're going to select the job. All these jobs here have estimates against them. So what I'm going to do is select a brand new job that does not have any estimating in it. I do have no bid items, very blank slate. So we want to go through and create an actual estimate where I'm not having to use different parts of using assemblies if that's not part of my company's workflow or if it doesn't make sense for my company. In this case, I've created some different grid views. We can come in here and add and create a grid view based on the way we like to estimate. So in this current one is called my parts view. I've already created one, also known as no assembly. So I created this a little bit before we have class. And before I really just start throwing stuff into my estimate, the first thing I want to do is I might want to break down my estimate even further. So in this particular example, or this class example, we're going to set up some bid items, and then we're also going to set up some phases and see how this looks within our estimating solution. This case we're going to set up, I'm going to go here and call this, I have none for that one. And I'm going to go here and say this one is general conditions. I can set up an item code if I want, if it's alphanumeric, any type of unit of measure that I want to go with this general condition, the quantities, as well as my items. A lot of these columns are not required. If you want them to be certain required, the only one that's really required here is the item type. And we're going to leave it as base bid. And we're just going to throw 5% overhead, 5% profit. Second one, I want to set up a second bid item, and I'm going to call this one, say, site work. And also, we're going to keep this a base bid, and we're also going to make our overhead 5%. Profit is going to be 5%. And we select save. Now, it says now update overhead and profit using bid items. Yes. So now I've got my bid items. Now, before I go gun-ho again, in this particular example, I want to set up a phase. So say we're working on a project where we have to lay, say, a 36 linear square foot of concrete that's 4 inches thick. And I have to do it on our property at Bangor office. So I want to set up and track my cost as well as build my revenue based on my phases. So in this case, I'm going to set up a phase, go out here, create one, maximize this. This is going to be phase one. Let's call this the north side sidewalk. And then we're going to call this number 2. And we're going to say, hey, this is the south side sidewalk. So now I've got 2 different phases where I can track these little 2 mini jobs inside of this bigger project for Bangor office. So I'm going here and save. So now I've kind of got my bid items set up and I've got my phases set up. I can come in and do projected values. In our last estimating video, we talked about how we can use these values as formulas to create logic that will follow throughout the whole takeoff. But in this case, we're just going to strictly deal with takeoff details and building a simpler estimate. So I'm going to here, now that I've gotten some bid items, in this case, I want to put it under my general conditions. In this case, let's go ahead and set up. And notice I'm not putting anything in my phases, because when I come back to my phases, I will discuss exactly where, because general conditions is going to go for both the north side sidewalk and the south side sidewalk. So I'm going to go here 343. So my job supervisor, I'm going to add that as well as 702. And one thing about this, as I'm going through and pulling my takeoff, I can change my view. So if I'm starting to just load up my parts, I have no assembly view. But if I just want to look at parts only, I can shorten that list up until I start going back, adding more detail to my estimate. So I got 702 job trailer. Let's go ahead and put in some quantities here. So it's going to take 30 man hours. The trailer we're going to need for, better yet, our job supervisor. Let's make that higher. Let's do this at say 120 a month. Now, I have my cost that's already preloaded. A lot of this information came over from my parts database. So when I go out here and look at add parts detail, notice my job supervisor, my description came over. It's part of my general requirements. It's a labor cost, and it has my default billing in here. Now, when we talk about labor cost, it's very clear, very clear when estimating talking about labor costs. It's not necessarily what we're paying the employee, but we want to be able to track exactly what our labor burden plus what we paid the employee. So for instance, we're paying an employee $20 an hour. We cannot throw that in our estimate. Or if we're paying them in this case $38 an hour, we cannot throw just that in our estimate because we need to factor in the company cost that is associated with that labor. And what I mean by that is we need to know what our SUTA is, our state unemployment, our federal unemployment, the Social Security tax, as well as the Medicare tax or any other tax that are paid for by the company. If we do not put the actual labor, true labor cost with that burden, then we wind up losing money out on our projects. So instead of I'm paying this job supervisor $38 an hour, I'm gonna up this to say 83 because I want to factor in the burden. So I'm gonna go here and save and let's override. You can override it in here too. And now I'm not necessarily tracking any tax districts. Let's remove this out of here. Let's go into and add 1220 as another piece. And I want to say we're going to keep the drop tailor for 1.5 months. We have months, man hours, and then also we have a lump sum. So I'm going to turn on the power. Power setup is just a one lump sum payment. So we go 1. As well as I want to do power, temp power that's running out there. We're going to say we're going to use that for a month, 1.5 months. And then we're going to go 1230. And this is also a lump sum temp phone fax out there on my site. 1. Let's do 1231. As well as this is going to be 1.5. And let's see, 1241. I guess my other one. And this one is also going to be a month, 1.5. And then let's do 1201. So we got restrooms out there. We're going to keep that out there for 1.5. And our last one that we want to build is going to be 2315. And I have a forklift out there to move some things around. And we're going to keep it out there for 45 days. Everybody, we don't need it. Let's keep it out there for only 10 days. We only need it for first 10 days. Get rid of these tax districts for right now. I'm not going to track it in this class. So now I've got my basic pieces of information as far as setup under my general conditions. I notice I don't have any phases and I've saved this. So I got it saved now. If I were to go back in my no assemblies, now I have more information that has been added to this. So if I was just looking at parts, yes, I do have my cost, I have my overhead, I have my profit, extended price, and my margin is around 9.3%. So if I want to make that margin go higher, I can, increase my profit and overhead. So if I go back and look at my no assemblies, now I'm able to see all that detail. So here's my overhead rate and here's my profit rate. So if I wanted to say, that looked kind of low, let's make this up to 8%. And since this is kind of imaging Microsoft Excel, I can copy this and then come down here and just paste this. So updates. Then I can come in up here at the top and I can recalculate. And now it updates my profit. And now my gross margin is about 11.82%. So I've set up some general requirements. But now what I want to do is now I want to go in and start looking at my site work. So I know that we have 2 phases. So I'm going out here and building a sidewalk on the north side. And I want to build a sidewalk on the south side. So let's go back in. Let's change our view back to parts so we're not pulling all that information as of right yet. In this case, let's set it up. 2, 9. Oh, I don't want to do that. No. Delete. There we go. So I want part number 29463. That's it. As well as 3102. And we want 5427. For us, so I got some framing, I got some grades, utility grade, I got some vinyl sinkers, as well as, let's see, what else are we going to put in this particular piece? Pea gravel. We also have some expansion joints that we're going to throw out there. And 3305. Then we want to make sure we get some carpenter work. We got sack concrete. And do I need concrete labor? Perfect. So now I can come back in here and let's sign our quantities. So last in my general requirements or general conditions, I went through and signed the quantities, but I can also go do parts and then come back and assign my quantities at another time. So in this case, I'm looking at linear square foot. So in this project, I know we're going to be looking at 2.4. And each we want 1.59. Each of those. We got a 90-pound bag of sinkers. We don't need the whole 90 pounds. So with this system, I can actually go all the way, not only left of the decimal, but I can go as far right as the decimals as we need to before, especially when you're talking just small quantities within an estimate. And then I want to go here and as well as point, let's make this 0.38. Let's make this 0.66. And let's make this 0.39. Make this 1.1. Okay. So now we've got our estimate is asked the question, would you like to save? Before I save, I want to get rid of all my tax districts, not to confuse the class. And we're going to go save. So now it shows me my extended cost on the north side of the north side sidewalk of Bangor office. And I can come down here and now look at all similarly, or I'm sorry, no assemblies. And that's similar what I had on my site work. I mean, on my general conditions. Now I found on my site work with this phase. And it shows me all of these pieces. Notice here that my profit rate is still 5%. I might want to go through and say, you know what? Let's go here and update all of my overhead and profit by cost types. Instead of me having, 5%, that's fine all the way down the board. But now I noticed that 5% was too low for my profit, for my margins of what I was trying to get on my gross margin. So I'm just going to change everything to 8%. And now I can come up here and update. And it's going to say yes. So now I've updated this piece. And as well as if I would go back general conditions, I don't have anything here because general conditions is not being tracked under a phase. So I'll go back to none and notice my 8%. So site work, I don't have any none because I'm not tracking any phases. I'll have phases I'm tracking on my site work. So I go back to the north side and now I've got these pieces to my estimate. Now, say for instance, I'll get to the second piece of it is I want to actually sub the second side of it out. So I want to go over here and create a second sidewalk. Notice my takeoff now comes to a complete screen because I'm on site work for my bid item. I'm on phase 2 of this project for Bangor office. So in this case, let's go in and keep. So because I'm a creature of habit, don't like reinventing the wheel. We're going to sub this out. So we're going to put in part number 3301. And let's go back to our part. And they're giving us a linear foot. So in this case, we're going to do 257 linear feet and say they're going to charge us 1808. So they're charging us $18.08 per linear foot. Okay, now we go calculate. So now it gives me my extended price. So now I've subbed this part of it out. And I can go back to still look at my views. So no assembly. So in this particular phase is going to cost us $4,600, 46.56. So $4,646.56. There's my overhead. There is my profit. and then there is my extended price. Now, even when I updated this and I have, 5% overhead, 5% profit, I might not be able to get away with 8% as far as since I'm subbing this particular part of the project out. So I'm gonna leave it at 5%. Everything else we're gonna do is gonna be self-performed. Now, if I want to go back and look at my other phase, so this one's costing us 46.46. I want to go back to my north side, grand total. Oh, notice it says $57. Yeah, that's way off. We're missing some carpenter work. Okay, so let's make sure update our quantities here and say that let's do man hours 120. Actually, it might take us more than that. Let's do 150 combined crews. Now let's update this. So therefore, then now this project is going to cost us 45. So in this case, if we wanted to do self-performing work, sometimes things come up where we cannot actually self-perform the work. We actually have to sub it out. So in this case, we're having to sub this out. It's costing us a little bit more money. Of course, we're going to charge it a little bit higher to the actual client because we're not doing the work. And I go down here to my south side, and there's my south side sidewalk. Now, with this piece of information, now I can go back and start looking at, let's start getting some vendors together. You know, if I'm going to material suppliers, I want to go out and say, hey, we're going to use 20. We're going to do the lumberyard here. And let's go 20. We'll order all this material from the lumberyard. Copy and paste. Oh, there we go. So now we've set vendors who we want to go through with this. And now let's go look at the south side and see which particular vendor I want to use. I can go out here and display, add records. I can choose and look through my concrete vendors. It takes me to all my vendors on that are within set up within my company. And I want to look at a concrete subcontractor. Okay, so Porter Ready Mix gave us back a quote for an estimate for 257 linear feet at 1808. So we put Porter. All right. Oh, not you. Let's go back in here. Here we go. Perfect. Safe. So now I've got Porter as my subcontractor for phase 2 of Bangor Office, the South Side Sidewalk. And they're going to charge for 250 linear feet. They're going to charge us 1808. So now I come up here and I just save. And I can come back and look at my general conditions and some things that are happening all together. Now I'm at the bottom and see exactly where my total cost is for this particular site work, what my overhead's going to be, what my profit's going to be, extended price, and my gross margin just for my general conditions. And then at the bottom tells me what my overall is going to be based on my overall project. So project total is going to be $22,000. Overhead is $1,000, $1,700 for my profit. So we need to charge our client $24,888.67. And for this particular general conditions is only we're charging out $14,600. I can break out all of this cost again based on my site work. Now that we're getting ready to dig deeper and going to work, I want to look at phase 1 that I have out here, which is going to cost me $45.54. I need to charge out to the client $51.65.30, as well as my south side piece. Now, I could take this information, I come out, I can print. I have many reports that I can look at. I can add notes to these pieces. So if I wanted to look at, a full takeoff print preview, shows me everything that I have that's happening on this particular project. Here is my general conditions and also on with all of my phases. Notice that this does not break this out in phases. It only broke it out over the overall project. If I wanted to look at the phase, I can just come in here and add the phase to the actual report as far as report conditions, and it would show me only that phase, extended price and extended cost. If I wanted summary totals amounts, if I wanted to break my worksheet out by phase, I can break that out. I just print preview. So now I'm able to see, hey, phase 0 there is no phase 0 because this is general conditions, which is going to go over the overall project. And now I can see down here is phase 1, giving me a list of my parts, what types of units we're measuring, how many quantities we're using, the price, the cost, the extended cost, and giving us our price. Mhm. And as well as if I wanted to look at, bid items and phase and like kind of really look at this report, I have one report where it shows me everything from the phase, the bid item, and where everything lies. Give me my bid item totals, give me my phase totals. So like for instance, here's phase 1 bid item site work. Here's my bid item total. And then I can go down and look at my phase total. And then that same thing with my phase 2. Well, everyone, thank you so much for just taking the time to watch this video on how we can create estimates in Sage 100 Contractor without using assemblies. So please stay tuned to our next class where we're going to go even further and how we can export information, import information, getting it over to the accounting solution. If you'd like to have further information, please check us out at bangeredinc.com, or you can look us up on YouTube and check out some of our videos. And thank you and have a wonderful day.